guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. We are doing our first reading wrap up of 2025, which is crazy. I feel like January went by so slow on one hand, but then on the other hand, I'm like, I cannot believe January is over already. Honestly, I feel like I had a really good reading month in January. I kind of got a slow start to reading this year, and I feel like that is like a theme that has kind of carried over. Like I got a slow start to reading, a slow start to like my content creation this year. I feel like I've gotten a slow start to like my New Year's resolutions. Everything honestly has just been like a slow start. I was like so ready to start the new year, and then I just like went into the biggest like life slump, honestly kind of like burnout, like a mini burnout in the beginning of the year, but I think because I let myself just like chill and take a break, I honestly was able to like recover. Is that even the right word? But yeah, and then I had a really good reading month. So I know that this video is a little bit late into the month. I usually try and post these a little bit more towards the beginning of the month, but I figured even though it's a little bit late, I still want to post it because I love wrap-ups. I feel like it's so nice to have everything all in one area, especially now that I'm doing like weekly vlogs. Like I do some reading in the weekly vlogs, I do some reading vlogs. Some books don't always end up making it into videos either, so I just like to do the wrap-ups and have like everything available in one spot. So yeah, I'm so excited that we're doing the first wrap-up of the year. Before we get into all the books that I read this month and like what I rated them and all of that stuff, I wanted to go over some monthly stats with you guys. This month I read 10 books total. I read 2 romances, 2 mystery thrillers, 3 fantasies, 1 lit RPG, 1 memoir, and 1 fiction book. I read a total of 3,828 pages, which every single time that I see the page number, it's honestly crazy because thinking of it in terms of page number just really points out like how much I'm reading every single month. It's honestly insane. The longest book that I read this month was Iron Flame. It was 640 pages, and then the shortest book that I read this month is The Answer Is No, and that was 68 pages. My average rating for this month was 4.48 stars. So like I said, such a good reading month. I think I found 4 5-star books. I feel like that's such a high average rating, honestly. And then something else that I wanted to start adding into my monthly wrap-ups this year, because it is such a big goal of mine to get through my physical TBR this year, is I wanted to start including how many books I read that were on my like original 2025 TBR, like books that started out on my shelves. This month I read 4 books that were on my physical TBR, 4 books that I already owned, and then 6 books that I did not own. Most of those were rented through the library through my Libby app. I think that this is going to be a really great reminder for me every single month to see like how many books I'm reading that I have already owned versus not, because like especially this, like I thought I did so good this month reading books that I owned, but then I like actually wrote it down and I was like, only 40%, that's it. So I don't know, I feel like it's just gonna help me be more mindful of like prioritizing the books that I already own. So to jump right into it, the very first book that I read in 2025 was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I rated this 5 stars. This was so good. Honestly, I didn't go into this with very high expectations because I feel like every single time that I've seen someone talk about this, at least on YouTube, people were so disappointed with this, and I honestly don't understand it. Like I do not understand it. I loved this so much. First of all, this felt like such a love letter to book readers and like book people, specifically like romance readers, but it just felt like such a love letter to readers in general, and like the way that everything was written and like the way that there was like lines drawn to like things that were happening versus like being a reader, if that even makes sense. But if you don't know, in this book you're following Elsie. She's supposed to go on this annual vacation with her best friend, and her best friend ends up bailing at the last second, and she's like, okay, I'm not canceling the vacation, I need this, like I need this vacation so bad, so I'm just gonna go by myself. And on her way there, her car breaks down and she ends up stranded in this like random little small town. If you don't know, Ashley Poston's books are like notorious for having like magical realism. So in this town that she's stranded in, she suddenly realizes, oh my god, this is the fictional town from my favorite book series, a series that was never completed. The author ended up dying before she was able to finish the series, so she has gone without having closure to this series. It's her favorite series, and she somehow ends up magically stuck in this town when her car breaks down on the way to this vacation by herself. And essentially that is what you're following. She's getting to live basically every reader's dream by getting to be transported into her favorite book series, essentially. And it was just so like romantic and sweet and cozy. Something about Ashley Poston's writing I just love so much, because right after finishing this, I immediately was like, I would reread this book. Like I actually want to reread it and underline some of the sweet quotes and tab things that I want to remember, which is just so crazy to think about because I also really want to reread The 7-Year Slip, her other book that I have read. And I feel like I don't often want to reread books. Like I will really like books, but I feel like only select few books I'm like, oh my god, I want to reread that so bad. And so far, both of the books that I have read by her, I already really want to reread. So I don't know. I feel like I can see why some people didn't like the ending, but I feel like I had sort of an appreciation for the way that she went about the ending, and like without spoiling anything, as vaguely as I can explain it, I just feel like I really appreciate how the characters, it feels like it's not like typical romance book fashion where it's like, okay, the only way for this book to end is for them to like, I don't know how to explain this without spoiling it. The way she writes the characters, it doesn't feel like the female main character or the male main character, honestly, are like relying on each other for happiness. It's very much centered around like finding happiness together, finding happiness separately. So there's a lot of like growth for each person and then also growth for the relationship. I don't know, trying to be vague, but I really ended up liking it. And I will say, I understand why some people wouldn't like it, because when I got to a certain part, I just was like, is this about to ruin the entire book for me? Like, is this gonna actually derail this entire book? But then the way we came back around at the end, I was just like, so good. So that was the first book that I read this year. Such a good start to the year, honestly. After that, I ended up listening to Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I rated this 4.25 stars. This is a mystery thriller. Honestly, I picked this up because I originally read The Housemaid, we all know, didn't really love that, and then I took a break from Frida McFadden forever, and then I decided to try her again with her newest release, The Boyfriend. I ended up liking that quite a bit more, so then I was like, okay, I'm being persuaded to try something else. I ended up being able to rent Never Lie from my library for free, so that's why I ended up trying that one out. And her books are usually like pretty quick and like fast paced, like very bingeable. So anyway, I listened to this one. I got it from my library. I loved this one so much more than I was expecting. I feel like the vibes of this book, like location wise, tone wise, it reminds me so much of Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, which is currently my favorite mystery thriller that I've read so far. I haven't really read too many, but it's my favorite out of the ones that I have read. But yeah, it gave me like such feelings of reading that book, which I really loved. And I feel like what makes it so similar is that both are set in like a desolate location in the woods during like a snowstorm, which is such a specific location, I feel like. But if anyone knows any other books that are like the vibe of those two, like knowing that I like those, let me know some recommendations, because clearly I really like that vibe and I would love to read more mystery thrillers like that. I just love that so much. But yeah, in this book, you are essentially following a couple. They go to see a house that they're like gonna be buying. When they get to the house to tour it, they realize that it is the house that this like world famous therapist who wrote a book lived in and then died in. So she's like, okay, this is really creepy. And the husband's like, well, this is my dream house, so like I really want to make this work. But while they were on their way to get to the house, it had started snowing, and by the time they're done viewing the house, they realize, wow, the storm has really picked up and I think we are stranded here. They have no cell phone signal, so there's no way for them to call and get help at all. And also, another weird thing, their realtor never showed up, so it's just them two at the house. So they end up having to stay there and they kind of get stranded there, and you follow the story from there. They're like trying to uncover a mystery. It was really good. It was very eerie, creepy things happening. Like, I don't know, kept me on my toes, very entertaining. And honestly, after reading The Boyfriend and Never Lie, I will say I'm back on good terms with Miss Frida McFadden. I think I just like started off, I don't know, I really don't know what happened with The Housemaid, because it's such a fan favorite. Like, I don't know why I didn't like that one as much. It's honestly really weird, but who knows. After that, I listened to Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. This is the second book in the Carl's Doomsday Scenario series. This is the one that I told you guys about that is a literary RPG. So it's like a literary fiction book that's like based on gaming, essentially. Like in the gaming, it has elements from video games. Essentially, if you don't know, this series is essentially about an alien invasion that happens on Earth, and you follow our main character Carl into these dungeons to participate in like intergalactic games, and all he has left when he enters the game is his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, and the underwear that he was wearing. And I think that's like what he enters the dungeon wearing. And listen, it doesn't sound profound from that, but honestly, this series is one of the most just like pure entertainment series I have ever read. Specifically, the audiobook is so good. I know every person that I have heard talk about this book like raves about the audiobook, and it's for good reason. Like, the audiobook is just so good. Something about the narrator, the way that he does all of the voices, and then also like the way that they do like sound effects, because it's like there's a lot of gaming elements to it. So like, for example, whenever they do intercom announcements, they'll put like a voice effect on it, and then he does like a special character voice for that. It's so interesting. I feel like for some reason, the vibes of the book and like the world that it's set in, it really gives me vibes of, why can I not remember what that video game is called? Borderlands. Okay. So it really reminds me, okay, like in my head, when I'm reading the book, I'm kind of envisioning characters from Borderlands. I don't imagine it as a cartoon. This is not going to make sense. It's so random, but I feel like it gives a vibe because it's like really funny. It's kind of raunchy, but like actually funny. Just like chaotic, honestly. You never know what's going to happen next. And like from the second you start the book to the end of the book, like the last page, it's just chaos. Like there's so much going on. It's just like, it's so interesting. And I feel like it is slowly getting a little bit more serious. Like the first book is really just like all chaos. I would say fun and games, but like there's an alien invasion going on and he's literally fighting for his life through these gory intergalactic games. So like not fun and games, but you know what I'm saying? Like the overall vibe of the book, although it was like very honestly heavy and gory battle scenes, was very lighthearted, which I feel like those two things should not go together, but I feel like that kind of goes to show like how good the author did at balancing like the comedy versus like the plot with like all these crazy things going on, if that makes sense. The second one definitely did feel a little bit more serious, but still very funny, very like light. I don't even know how to explain it. That's like all I can explain it by, but like anytime that I just want to be entertained, and that's quite literally it, I like crave listening to another one of these books. It's been like a little treat, honestly. It's just like pure entertainment. I feel like if there's nothing I can say about the writing is so this and the plot is so good because of this, like no, it's literally just so entertaining. Also, it kind of gives me the vibes of like that one, I think it's Thor, like Love and Thunder or something, when it's just like so out of pocket and like funny and weird. Like I don't know, I feel like it gives me kind of those vibes. I don't know like if that's accurate. I feel like that's just what it gives me. Take that as you will. I don't know. After that, I did a reread of Iron Flame. This was once again 5 stars on the reread. Honestly, I liked this even more on the reread. I know that we have talked about this before here. I have loved Iron Flame from my first read of it. I know that a lot of people didn't like it because a lot of people felt like there was a lot of unnecessary miscommunication and it was boring. I personally think the miscommunication in this book was necessary and it wasn't too much. I feel like it did so much for the character growth. I honestly, most of the time that I have read miscommunication, I have not minded it because I feel like it makes the characters more real. And I said this before somewhere. I don't remember what book I was talking about whenever I said this before. I just feel like it makes the characters more real because in real life, no one is ever going to respond correctly the first time. No one is ever going to fully understand someone else's intentions or what they're trying to say or their meaning behind things 100% every single time the first try. Like that's just not real. And I feel like especially for the ages of the characters in the series and what they're going through, they obviously don't know all the information. Like I feel like us as the reader, we have theories going on. We know more information than the characters a lot of times. So like obviously it's gonna feel like miscommunication too because they don't know what's going on either. Like we're kind of learning things alongside them. I just feel like it really serves a purpose with character growth, and so I don't mind it at all. And I feel like it really wasn't as much of the book as people were feeling like it was or were like saying as it was, at least for me. So I loved it so much on the reread. That's all I have to say about that. After that, I listened to Loud. This is a memoir by Drew Afwalo, I think is how you say her name. I really enjoyed this. It was 5 stars. First of all, it was very like emotional to listen to kind of her backstory because I only knew her from TikTok. So it was really interesting to hear her backstory, but also like very encouraging because I feel like she goes into depth about one, like feminism and like being a girl's girl and like all this stuff, but then also like her journey of believing in herself. And I feel like that is what really like hit home to me because it really, it hit me so deeply. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But it was really good, really emotional, had me tearing up at times just because it just felt like a girl talk. Like whenever you would have a sleepover and like be up at 2 a.m. and be like talking with your girls and having like a deep emotional, that's like kind of what it felt like, honestly. So I don't know, really enjoyed that one. After that, we read Onyx Storm. 5 stars. 5 stars immediately. 5 honestly painful, traumatizing stars, but it was so good. I will say in the beginning of this book I was a little bit confused as to like characters. I know that's like been a big thing on TikTok right now, is like when you start this book and it's like who went where, like who are all these people. I definitely can relate to that, but I kind of blame that on myself. Like I can't remember things in general. Like I'm notoriously bad at remembering characters' names or like major plot points just go over my head or slip from my brain very easily. My sister is witnessing this in real time because we are reading Throne of Glass together, and she'll be like talking to me about something and I'm like, are you spoiling something for me? And she's like, you read this 6 chapters ago. Like we just found this out together actually. And I'm like, oh, sorry, could you just remind me real quick? So I kind of blame that on myself, but seeing it online, I feel like that is a common thing. However, I do not agree with people saying that this book was boring. Excuse me, I love the vibes. I love the fact that, first of all, the world was expanding so much in this book. I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like, it felt like going on such an adventure. We got to go to so many different places all around this world, whereas in the previous 2 books, you've kind of just been to like the main like 2 or 3 locations. In this book, you get to see so much. And not only that, I feel like all of the characters had such good character development in this book. Like not only the main characters, but the side characters. In the previous books, like I liked a lot of the side characters, but there was only like maybe 1.5 sometimes. Like maybe 1.5 or 1 or 2 side characters where I like maybe would have cried over, but felt a little bit attached to, like cared about what was going on. But like it was mainly just like the main characters, right? Like that's what I'm concerned about. After reading this book, I love all the side characters. Like we actually feel like such a unit, such a found family, such a squad after this book, and I appreciate that so much. I mean, like at the end of Iron Flame you were kind of getting that feeling, but this book really just solidified that like family vibe. Like we are a unit. And also you just got to see so much more of like all the side characters' personalities in this book too. Like it was more funny. I remember saying that in the new releases vlog where I read this. There was so much more comedy from the interactions in the side characters, and honestly I love it so much, especially because like so much is going on in this book where that is like kind of sad or stressful or, you know, all that stuff. So like the comedic relief of all the side characters in this book was so good. I love it. I love it so much. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. It's not even announced yet, and I know we're gonna have to wait longer because she already announced like, yeah, it's not coming anytime soon. So that's kind of depressing, but I think I am eventually going to do a reread of the first 3 books. I want to go through and like tab and annotate it to see if I can catch any things. Like now that we're way farther into the series, I want to go back, especially to the first book, and see if I pick up on things that I just like didn't notice the first time around, because I feel like there must be so many like small things that were like foreshadowing for stuff that was to come, but like we just had no idea because there's no way that you could possibly know where we were gonna end up at this point. Yeah, I'm honestly still coping. It was so good. After that, I finally, you guys, finished Magnolia Parks, and I ended up rating this 4.75 stars. So good. And when people say this is the UK Gossip Girl, like that's so on point. And as a fellow mixed girly, as a fellow ultra light-skinned girly, I loved that the main character was also a little light-skinned baddie. I kept just imagining either, what's her name, Nora? Is her name Nora Roberts? Smith. I'll put a picture here. I kept imagining either her, Zendaya, or honestly from the reboot of the Gossip Girl, one of the sisters. I'll put them both up here. I was kind of like going back and forth in my brain between both of those sisters. I still am undecided on who I think fits the role better. But anyway, I loved this book. It was painful for sure. In such a slow way, let me say, because this book is very, I won't say mundane, but it's very like, maybe is it called slice of life or something? Like there's not a crazy plot going on. Like you're literally just, it feels like watching episodes of Gossip Girl, like just regular life things happening, and then boom, scandal, boom, red flag, boom, toxic, boom, we're fighting. That is the vibe. And so I feel like for the first portion of this book, I was not attached, I was not invested, I was entertained, but I was not attached or invested. And all of a sudden, in the last like 100 pages of this book, stuff was happening and I was like, wait, because I actually care now. Like I actually care now. And like the way that this book ended, it genuinely felt like when you'd be watching Gossip Girl towards the end of the season, everything is going good. You're like, wow, like I can't wait for the next season. It's gonna be so lit. Everybody likes each other. Everything's going good. Da 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 da. And then in the last 5 minutes of the last episode of the season, one thing happens and it just, it's like that TikTok sound where it's like, and you know, it could all go that's, you know, that's it. And I feel like that is so accurate too to like the toxic TV show vibe. And then it's like, oh my god, how are we gonna recover for this? I can't wait for next season, you know? It's even, it kind of is like, I don't know, I feel like that is kind of classic TV show vibe. But yeah, so by the time that happened, then I was like, no, No, I did not see it coming either, so that was honestly tragic. And so the way that this ended, regardless of how toxic, did raise my rating for this. I was kind of more in the 4-star territory, but because of that last little bit where I was like, wait, no, because I am actually attached. Like, I do actually care so much right now, and I actually am in pain. I cannot wait to start the next book, especially because the next book is Daisy Hates, so we're going to be following a different character. And in this book, you do kind of see maybe like 2 or 3 events of Daisy Hates that are like going along at the same time, but you really don't get much. So I'm very interested to see like how the vibes of the books differ. I know people say that you're usually either a Magnolia Parks person or a Daisy Hates person, so I'm interested to see which one I end up liking better, or if I like them both the same, like what the vibes are. But yeah, I'm so happy also that I just finally finished this, because why did I start this book last year? And not like by the end of the year, I mean like I started it in the beginning of summer, so it was well overdue. After that, I read Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Honestly, this was such a letdown. I rated it 2.75 stars. I honestly am really surprised that I didn't end up liking this, because like I said, my current favorite mystery thriller is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, so I was so excited to be giving another book of hers a try, especially because it was a new release this year. So, but yeah, I don't know, I'm just like really disappointed. In the video where I read this, I talked about the fact that like it was just really hard to take it seriously, because it felt like the main character that we were following was not taking it very seriously. I eventually ended up reading a lot of this kind of feeling like it was not sarcastic, what is the word that I'm thinking of? Like satire. I mentioned it in the video. It reminds me of the TV show that's called like The Woman, I gotta look it up again because I can never, it's such a long name. The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. And I feel like that is what I kept thinking about when I was reading this, not like plot wise at all. I'm like pretty sure. I never actually finished that show, but I'm pretty sure that the plots are not the same, but like vibe wise, because that show had that same thing where it was like, yes, we are having like very spooky moments, but at the same time, like why does it kind of feel like it's poking jokes at mystery thrillers, which I don't think was the intention. So that was really weird and interesting, but I genuinely think it's because like something so concerning would happen and the character would like, okay, for example, the character is somewhere, undisclosed location, because we don't spoil things here, but the character was at an undisclosed location and they found bones. They look at the bones, are very freaked out, and 5 seconds later they just go, they're probably not even real. And what makes you think that? Like, what makes you think that? I don't know. There was just so many moments like that where they were like concerned for 5 seconds, but then like, it's nothing to worry about. I'm sure there's a reason. And you're just sitting there like, what is the reason? Like, what would the reason be? Why are you not more concerned? Yeah, because of that, it ended up being a 2.75. I did keep it like, I was kind of going between a 3 and a 2.75 because it was still like very creepy, very eerie. But honestly, the way it ended too was just so like, really? You expect me to believe that? You know, like it was a plot twist in the way that I'm like, really? I don't know. We'll have to try out another one of her books. I said in that vlog, I really want to try another one of her books because now I have a 5-star that I love, and then I have a 2.75 star that I really was disappointed in and didn't like. So now I want to read a third book of hers to see if it was just a one-off that I got a 5-star book and loved, or if it's a one-off that I got a 2.75 star that I did not love. You know what I'm saying? So now I need to read a third one and figure out if I actually like her writing or not, basically. After that, I read The Songbird in the Heart of Stone. This was a long-awaited book because this came out last November and I was so excited for it because The Serpent and the Wings of Night is one of my favorite all-time adult romantasy books. I love Carissa Broadbent's writing because she has such a good way of making a book so entertaining and so in-depth while being so easy to follow, but not over simple. It's just like, it's the perfect amount, and it's the perfect amount of slow burn to romance. The spice is so good, the romance, the way it's written, it just, everything is so good. So this was the first book following a new character in the series, and I was really excited to get this one because I do really love the character that we were following. And I loved this book because, again, kind of similar to Onyx Storm, this felt like, okay, we're going on a grand adventure. Like, it's not necessarily we're staying in one spot and like letting the plot evolve. It was like the world around us is really evolving as we go through the story, because in this book the main characters are essentially taking a trip to the underworld, so they have to go through like this, is it 7? I think it's like the 7 sanctums. It's essentially you're going through like purgatory into the underworld. So that's like what we're following in this book. They're taking a journey down there, and it was just so entertaining and interesting to hear about how Carissa Broadbent interprets like what each of those layers would be. Mark told me that it was like a book. I don't remember what it is called. Okay, that's what it was. Okay, so Mark told me that when I was telling him what this book was about, he was like, oh, it reminds me of Dante's Inferno, and he was like telling me what that was about. Honestly, he made me want to read that. Like, I've never read classics, really. I mean, obviously, I think we read, like, the Odyssey in high school. I don't even remember, because I was not paying attention. But then me and Mark were talking about the Odyssey, too, and he made me want to read Dante's Inferno and also the Odyssey, because I do also just think it's so interesting and crazy that, like, we can read words that someone wrote so long ago and still be encapsulated by the story that they wrote. That's kind of crazy whenever you actually think about it. But anyway, this was so good. I rated this 5 stars. One thing that I really enjoyed about the romance specifically in this book was the way that certain things were written. Obviously with like TikTok you hear all the time like how everyone's so obsessed with the like he growled, this, he that. So there was a couple of quotes that I have from this book that I specifically like, they just stood out to me. The first was, do not touch her. He didn't growl, he didn't yell. His words were clear. 4 precise swipes of the blade. And I'm like, wait, because he's not being like, I feel like the typical MMC in like the romances is like, you know, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna freak out right now, like literally loses their minds. But he literally sat there and was like, do not touch her. Okay. Another one, it says, he didn't need to say anything. No, get your hands off of her. No, don't you dare touch her. No snarled stake of possession. But the living and the dead and all in between felt it. What do you mean? What do you mean? They felt it? Like, he didn't even have to say a single thing. Oh my god. So good, so good. I cannot wait for the next book in the series. I think it actually comes out this fall, which is so exciting. Highly, highly, highly recommend this series. Seriously, so good. The last book that we have for this month is actually The Answer Is No by Frederick Bachman. This is the first book that I've ever read by Frederick Bachman. I thought it was really, really good. It was so interesting. It was honestly very relatable in the way it felt kind of like a, what am I trying to think of? It kind of felt like a look into people and like, well, obviously. I don't even know how to explain it, but the way that the characters were written, it was like different types of stereotypes of like certain types of people personified into like characters. It was interesting, like his writing style felt very distinct, and I say that because his characters, they felt almost like cartoonish in a way while being like very real and like, no, like I feel like there are definitely types of people out there like that, but then at the same time it's like, okay, that kind of, it feels so like dramatized and like cartoonized, is that a word? Like, or I don't even know how to explain it, but it was really funny. It was very relatable. Honestly, there were so many little points where, or just like so many little random sentences that the main character would say and you're like, wow, I feel that. Like, I relate to that. Very interesting. It was just a short story, so I think it was like literally only 64 pages. This is the book that was the shortest book that I read this month, so it's just a short story, 60 something pages, I'm pretty sure, but it was really, really good. And honestly, I feel like it was a good taste into like his writing style and like into his books, because especially like if I were to go into one of his like full novels, I would have like a better understanding of his writing style or like what to expect from that. So I'm really glad that I decided to start off with a little novella or a little short story from him, just because like it's just a good little taste of like what you're in for, I guess. So I'm really, really excited to read more of his books. I don't really know that much about the author or his books, so if you guys have read a lot of Frederick Bachman and you like recommend a good starting point, I guess, let me know, because I genuinely have no idea. I don't even know if it matters or if it's similar to like Emily Henry, where it's like you can really read whichever one you want. Like, yeah, let me know if you guys have any recommendations as far as that goes. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of January. It was such a good start to the year reading wise. Let me know down below what you guys read in January. You can leave your stats down below in the comments. I love to see what you guys are up to, what you guys are reading, what you recommend. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, even though it was a little bit late. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future content from me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!